Within the next few months, I'll spend more time on creating AWS usage content and demos. This is a very basic presentation on AWS, the things that I keep in my mind when I learn more about AWS and use more of the AWS services or features. I find using Amazon Web Services, AWS, tremendously exciting because AWS enables running online services without a hefty upfront cost and allows at-will, fully automated online services scaling. AWS is in my view, a great enabler for businesses and software developers on the internet. As of now in AD 2023, June to be exact, the Q1 tech layoffs and revenue reports indicate that the market for cloud computing platforms may have saturated. The Moore's law has ended and the computing speed and storage capacity may never advance as rapidly as they have in the past. However, I'm certain that this is not the end of the advances in computing because at the hardware level, the ultimate limit of computing has not been reached. Computers can probably get faster, like up to 1 million times more before they hit the absolute physical limit. Not the physical limit in transistor shrinkage, but in terms of how much energy is used to perform computing. So hopefully, God willing, and I pray to God that computing power and complexity will continue to advance at the hardware level, but it might not be as fast as it has been in the past, and like a doubling, like every 2 years or so. But I still think there's a lot of room for computing to advance and grow, and who knows, maybe for the next 200 years, computing will still continue to advance. Well, and maybe it hit the limit then, 200 years later. In any case, I'm a firm believer in the continuing advances in computing, and it may not have to be a sheer speed increase and storage capacity increase. It may be more intelligent use of information, such as artificial intelligence and more intelligent processing and application of information and already acquired data. So I see computing as a field that still has a tremendous room to grow and expand, and I'll certainly continue doing my part to make my own contributions and making my own contributions in advancing computing, particularly in AI and robotics. Those two are my biggest commitment, and I'm also into computational biotechnology. So those three fields, AI, robotics, and computational biotechnology, still have tremendous rooms to grow in mass scale computing. So a lot of more things to be done. This is not the end of computing. The end of the Moore's law is not the end of the advances in computing in both hardware and software. So I'm tremendously excited about still doing more work in making my own contributions in advancing computing, and continue to do so. And AWS, Amazon Web Services, I see Amazon Web Services as a tremendously important and exciting presence on the internet because it enables offering services with no upfront cost, and offering online services with no upfront cost, and with the ability to just scale it as much as you want. So so I think AWS will grow. So hopefully AWS and other computing platform providers, other cloud computing platform providers will find ways to gain more customers and make online cloud computing more useful to more people. And hopefully I'll do my part in making cloud computing more applicable to more people in more human endeavors. And AWS was the first popular, widely adopted cloud computing platform. But now there are Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and IBM Cloud all competing in the same market. So is AWS still relevant? I think AWS is still highly relevant, and it'll continue to be in the foreseeable future. I believe learning how to use AWS is still worth the effort for all those who are serious about software development in AD 2023 and beyond. That's how I see it. Some people might not agree, but that's how I see it. I prefer top-down approach in learning and software development. I look at the overall picture, then fill in the details in all things I do. AWS is a fairly complex platform with over 200 services. So it's going to take some time to learn them. It's going to take some time to try them out, try out all the different features and services. It'll probably take several years to actually try out all the 200 services. So just not all the features, but just the main features. But still, if you want to learn like a couple dozen most popular, most in-demand AWS services with their main features, you can probably try them all out within a couple of months, if not a few weeks. So definitely, to me, anything online is truly exciting. The online technologies are exciting. The cloud is truly exciting to me. AWS is certainly a big presence in the cloud computing platforms. So I definitely think AWS is worth learning and spending the time to master to a certain degree. I mean, to me, using AWS is extremely exciting. And other computing services, they are computing services. They are cloud computing services all. So more or less similar. AWS pioneered the cloud computing platform business. So I don't see like a real radical difference between the different cloud computing platforms. The following are what I consider as the essential AWS services that a software developer who is serious about using AWS must know about. The AWS service descriptions from the official AWS documentation. I'll just go over what I see as the major AWS services that I should know about, and other software developers who are serious about AWS should know about. And I go over these different AWS services by major AWS service categories. So AWS Cloud Security Services, the main ones are AWS IAM, AWS VPC, and AWS Cognito. AWS IAM, Identity and Access Management, is for setting up users and groups and protecting your AWS resources with access control policies. You know what? I'm not going to read these definitions. Those are available at these are definitions from the official documentation. So I'll just go over the main what I consider as the main AWS services in different AWS service categories. And also the next category, AWS service category, is AWS Cloud Data Storage and Delivery Services, and which include, but not limited to, Amazon CloudFront, which is important to learn because in the cloud, you definitely need to distribute your data. And using Amazon Cloud Front, you can do that very well. And AWS media services, if you have a need to process multimedia data online, you can certainly use AWS media services. And one of the most important category of services that AWS offers is AWS data services, which include Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon RDS, Amazon Aurora, and Amazon Redshift, and Amazon Neptune, and AWS Lake Formation. If you are a serious web app developer, and if you must develop enterprise class or commercial web applications, you obviously need to have database. I don't know any enterprise commercial web app without databases. So AWS database services, I'm tremendously interested in these AWS services and in the database AWS services, and within the next hopefully within the next few months, if not a couple of months, if not 1 month, I will cover more of these AWS database services. And the next AWS service category is AWS Cloud Computing Services, and I would consider cloud computing services and the database computing services and the data storage services as the most important and the most in-demand cloud services offered by AWS, because those are absolutely essential when you set up and operate services online. So AWS cloud computing services are something you need to know intimately about, something you will use often. You will certainly use Docker to deploy cloud computing nodes, and use Kubernetes to deploy and manage clusters of cloud computing nodes. So these are very exciting when these services, while these services don't run on your own computers or on your local servers, when you deploy them in the cloud on AWS, they still run and they still keep offering these hopefully fantastic online services to your customers. So I find, you know what, I'm going to just say it. I'm actually in love with cloud computing services, particularly AWS cloud computing services, data storage services, and database services, because they allow and enable such fabulous online services and features that you can offer at will to your customers. As a business. So there are a number of services in cloud computing in AWS, but I'll just mention, I just read aloud the ones that I've listed here, and then I just briefly talk about what I think are the main entrees or the most important services in AWS cloud computing. Amazon ECS, there's Amazon EC2, Elastic Computing. God, I can't remember what that ECC is, but that's a good Elastic Cloud Computing, I think. So I skipped on Amazon EC2. I didn't list Amazon EC2 because it's just such a basic one. And I've learned it like quite some time ago. I didn't want to cover it again. So, but there's the Amazon EC2. That's the most fundamental of all the Amazon cloud computing services. And all the other Amazon cloud computing services are built on Amazon EC2, to the best of my knowledge. And then there's the Amazon ECS, Elastic Container Service, which is for using Docker, and which is tremendously important if you are developing like a, business, like a division or department. in a business because they often use this to deploy small, like microservice web apps. So Amazon ECS, Elastic Container Service, is an important, prominent Amazon cloud computing service, and Amazon EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, for for deploying and managing a clusters of Docker containers. And then there's Amazon Lambda, serverless computing, AWS Step Functions, AWS Serverless Application Repository, Amazon Athena, for just doing the SQL query, and then AWS Elastic Beanstalk. And although if you're a serious professional web app developer, you need to know about and be competent in all of these AWS computing, cloud computing services. But I would say Amazon EC2, Amazon ECS, and Amazon EKS are the most important ones that you definitely need to master. And the next next AWS category. Again, AWS is big. I mean, over 200 services, quite a lot. I don't know how many people are in the AWS division within Amazon, but I guess at least like several tens of thousands software developers probably work on continuously developing and improving AWS as a platform, software as a platform, or hardware as a platform, cloud computing platform. Yeah, and AWS also offers AWS auto scaling and high availability services, and these services are tremendously important, especially for enterprise web apps that need to auto scale and available and like all the time practically. So AWS Cloud Formation, something you definitely need to learn. AWS Application Load Balancer, something you definitely need to use as a enterprise web developer. Amazon EC2 auto scaling, you definitely need to know about that. Amazon Application auto scaling and AWS auto scaling, all important stuff. You definitely need to know how to use these to set up and operate web apps that auto scale and available, highly available, and highly available all the time, 24/7, everywhere. And Amazon AWS Cloud CI/CD services, continuous integration and continuous deployment services. To the best of my knowledge, AWS CI and CD services do not have the market dominance. They have like under 10% market share, to the best of my knowledge. I probably looked that up like a few weeks ago, so it's not that old. But since I'm a fan of, and it looks like different job descriptions, web app developer job descriptions mention using Microsoft Azure CI and CD services, but or Jenkins or even GitLab, but they don't mention like AWS CI and CD services. So maybe AWS CI and CD services are not in that high demand, but still it's available at AWS. And if you like AWS, and it doesn't hurt to learn them and at least to know how to use them at the basic level. So AWS Cloud CI/CD services have code commit, code artifact, code build, code deploy, code pipeline, and developer tools console and OpsWorks. And even if you are not a DevOps or like InfoSec or information security engineer, I think knowing these, at least knowing how to use these, or how to set up and use these, are important. In my view, what you don't know in software engineering will hurt you. So, in employment and in doing your job. So the more you know, it certainly is definitely advantageous. So I would recommend learning AWS Cloud CI and CD services. I mean, it's wonderful to have something working in the cloud and something that's distant and something that's away from you, far away from you, providing services is wonderful. So I would recommend certainly using at least in knowing, at least in learning how to use the AWS CI/CD services. And AWS has a cloud monitoring services such as CloudWatch, Event Bridge, and CloudTrail. If you're a web app developer, these are some things you definitely need to know about. And another AWS service category is cloud data engineering, data science, and machine learning services. Those are, of course, huge. Many people see, especially AI, as one of the most important future aspects of computing. So, need to learn to stay relevant. So, some of the services in data engineering, data science, and machine learning in AWS are Kinesis, Glue, SageMaker, EMR, Lookup for Vision, and Data Pipeline. Things that you should definitely learn if you are a serious web app developer. And AWS also has application development services to speed up your web app development, such as WebSync and Amplify, things that you at least should know about, should know how to use. And there are some like a common AWS usage scenarios and methods that I keep in mind and interested in, like a single-tier web app deployment on AWS, and a multi-tier web app deployment on AWS, and multi-local and global web apps on AWS. Things that a competent and highly skilled web developer web app developer should definitely know about. And multilingual website, data engineering on AWS, data science on AWS, machine learning on AWS, using big data services on AWS, and AWS big data platform and pipeline design paradigm. And one thing that is of a tremendous interest to me, which is web app database topologies and design methods, like SQL versus NoSQL. When do we use which type of database? And vertical versus horizontal database scaling, user read-only versus user-writable databases, user-writable SQL databases, subclusters with multi-database nodes, automated database backup, and automated database restoration. Within a few months, if not hopefully within a couple of months, I'll cover more about cloud databases and a cloud database like a design, deployment, and testing. So I'll definitely cover more. I'll definitely talk more about that, because database is so important, and I'll also write my own databases for AI and robotics. So database, I mean, it's not something. Okay, my affair with the database doesn't end here. It's going to continue for years, and probably decades, because AI, robotics, computational biotech, like genomics and proteomics biotech, all require databases, and in my cases, require custom databases that I need to write. So I'll definitely get more into databases later on.